honoured to have into the Design Note studio a titan. In fact, I'm convinced that's what his first initial stands for. In the board gaming world, the designer of Viva Java Dice, and the new epic multi-layered narrative game My Father's Work, and also fabulous person for hiring voiceover actors, TC Petty III. TC, welcome to Design Notes.
Hello, welcome to me, and thanks for having me on, Ben. Yeah, I appreciate getting to talk after a long period of not talking.
So my first question is where you get to shed the sort of social construct of modesty that we're all forced to adopt at some point, and you can brag as much as you wish. And so my first question is, when did you know you were good at what you do?
Just from day one. No, but hey, good question. The honest choice, the honest answer is that I thought I was good until I was good, and that was the only time. And that's I'd say about 2013. That's whenever I started to realize that maybe this board game design thing, or maybe this writing thing, has a chance. Like I could maybe do something with this.
And what was it in 2013 that triggered this epiphany?
Well, I mean, you had the first game that came out, and I started going consistently to like game design meetups. I was watching videos. I was really well versed in I don't know, the craft of it, as opposed to it just being a thing that I did off to the side for like 5 years or so. It was sort of this, oh wow, people are playing this game, they like it. Also, I have 3 other games that I'm currently working on. Also, people like those, and they're just showing up at my table to play them, and we're having this good like back and forth and feedback and everything. So I was like, oh, there is something there. But not only that, like I kind of have a thing for this. Like I can do this. You know, I suck at puzzles, honestly, designing puzzles. But when it comes to like dynamic gameplay aspects and coming up with new ideas that are either simple or complex, it's like, ooh, I got something. I can do this.
So you have a theme that runs through your design, and where it's sort of competitive cooperation, whereby you're playing in a competitive game, but you have to team up with the players around the table to kind of achieve your goals, achieve mutual benefit, essentially. Was this something that emerged naturally, or is this some kind of pre-planned ethos that you want to work into your design?
It's not. It's just a tool, right? And the thing that I use the most, right, like, is I want new types of interaction at the table. And when you explore that kind of thing, you get like all kinds of new like game mechanics. And I think I'm starting to see it like seep into people's mindset, right? I see Ryan Laukat has a lot of like in those bigger games like Above and Below, and what's the Never or Now or Never. So I try to think, it sounds like the candy, Now and Laters, but no, it's now or never. And it's just cool to see that like there are these collaborative gameplay elements that get in there, because that's a level of interaction that I just didn't see. And so when I played like Puerto Rico, that's when I was like, oh, holy crap, there is, not only am I playing my game, I'm anticipating what someone else will do, because I need to do that so that I progress. Like I will actively benefit from this person's thing. So maybe I don't want to take this action because it's blatant. I want to take this action because the next person is going to be forced to take that action, and that helps me out, right? Once I got that in my head, I was like, suddenly there's this whole new aspect of niceties, veiled niceties. I guess it's the good versus nice. I'm good if I take the blatant action. I'm nice if I take the action that helps everybody out a little bit, but helps me out the most. And then you have to take the super good action, right? So I think it's natural. I shouldn't think people get that in their head, and it's the wrong thing. So I just always think about it.
And so when I think about you as a designer, I think about this sort of wave of early 20-teens designers, that American designers specifically, that seem to want to stray into areas that American designers hadn't strayed into before, essentially Euro game design. Was that because that was the kind of games that bewitched you before you started designing? Was it always this aspiration? I want to tread in the footsteps of the Knizias and the Rosenbergs.
Yeah, seriously. Honestly, I think if you would have asked me, if I would have gotten into it before then, say in the 90s or something, I probably would have come at it from the standard way. Like you see all the designers that came out of the CCG era.
Mm.
There's like a swath of these American designers that they kind of are set in their ways. They've taken that with them with modern mechanics, but they've never really embraced the other stuff. Like for me, the first thing that got me was something like Settlers of Catan or Puerto Rico or Kalis or those other games. And they just my brain went, this looks terrible. I don't want to play this. And then it was good. It was like the movie Whiplash. This is a jazz drummer. And then you play it, and then the game about, or this is, you play the game. You play the game Whiplash. So it was just, the description of it sounds so dumb. Like I don't want a jazz drummer that is pushed by his instructor. Cool. But you watch it and you go, oh, this is, wow, this is way more than what I thought. It's a little bit uncomfortable. It's great. I don't understand. So that's what I felt with Eurogames. They are great. They are a little bit uncomfortable, and they make you think in a way that I wanted from video games but never got. And I don't think I ever really will. I mean, you get it some little bits and pieces, but I want to strategize, and I want other people to be involved in that in a direct level. And it's like, yeah, it just doesn't happen in video games very often.
So it seems that before, so I think we sort of come from a similar kind of background. You come from a creative writing background and ostensibly artistic background. And I find, if ever I think about game design, that sort of the process-oriented approach that you need to design something that is a Euro game. This is why it seems to me it's such a German art form. It seems to evoke elements of the German character. I mean, when you started designing, did you find that sort of process element difficult, or did it feel like jumping in a warm pool?
I don't think it felt like I don't think anything with design feels like jumping in a warm pool. I know that it's like I've tried myself to design card games, like both small card games and those kind of living card games, the expandable ones, right? And I mean, the deck builders and all the other whatever. There's all kinds of stuff. But the thing that I find is that with each new thing, I treat it as an opportunity to attack it in a different way. So I like when I was doing like my first deck builder, Xenon Profiteer, right? I just attacked it not from I'm making a deck builder, but like I'm just going to make the thing I want to make and then play it 20 times really fast, which I never did. You know, just play it by myself 20 times really fast and see if this will emit the game. And that worked. And I realized, okay, card games, if you're going to do this, play it in your head, play it on the table, do it as many times as you can, because that'll get you into it. But you don't have to do that with a big Euro game. Like you gotta put those things in motion, give them a lot of thought. They're gonna mess up, but if you put the thought into the basic quadrants of your game design, you can then drop a piece in there and say like, okay, this is the playing field for that. This is the playing field for that. And then hopefully get them to all come together. So when I'm looking at it, like, and you're talking about artistic stuff. So it's like, that's not really artistic. That's more craft, but it's also artistic in the way that you just approach it. So I think the overall answer is I am not systems oriented, which is weird, being that I mostly did like creative writing and narrative stuff. I think it's just that it got beaten out of me in school. Like I loved the puzzles, but I didn't like the math. Mainly because, you know, it's like, I was in honors math a year ahead, and then I was suddenly a year behind, and then I was suddenly all this stuff, and it was just because of bad teachers. Like, and I look back and I go, wow, teachers really made a difference, because my English teachers were really good and really pushed me to be the best. And yeah, I got B's in their class, but like I had more fun and gained more knowledge than ever from that, because they actually challenged me. as opposed to the A's or A pluses I got in math and had zero challenge. So yeah, I just started drifting away from that. But like when I came back, it felt like, oh, this is like a natural extension. This is like a new medium to explore, and I treated it like this is a canvas. And I don't know. Yeah, that's all. That's highfalutin, language stuff. But yeah, I really feel like it is a process that's artistic as opposed to just systems. So.
Well, what's fascinating is I referred earlier to this sort of raft of American game designers that sort of started designing around the turn of the last decade, and what was really interesting is they were taking sort of established Euro tropes and yet always consistently draping them in peculiarly American sort of thematics. You worked a lot with Dice Hate Me, and their sort of stated aim was Americana. And do you think there is a sense of wishing to be less conservative than the German Euro designers, wishing to break new grounds and tell new stories?
I don't know if it's really that I have some sort of chip on my shoulder about these things, or want to be better than the German designers or anything like that. Because I don't think there's any competitive in me for that. It's more that I play these games and I feel like there's something missing. I feel like there's a consideration that, yes, this would have worked 15 years ago. I do this a lot. I play a lot of games lately that I'm like, oh, this is good 15 years ago. And I play it with like a game designer. Even in America, like we have a lot of game design meetups. So it's like you play a game and you'll be like this tile game where everybody has the middle of the board and they have their own tiles and their side. And you have three options, like a standard Reiner Knizia game. Like there's always three options on your turn. You can do this, this, or this. Two of them are always good. It's always tense. And you play it in 45 minutes. And then I get to the end of it and I'm like, this would have been great in 2002.
Right.
But it doesn't function anymore. Like you could put it out for sure, but like it's going to just hit the market and go dull thud. Because I think at this point, not only just talking about like standing out in the market, right? That's a big thing. But like I think at this point, designers have started to understand that, hey, there's not only do you have to have theme, you have to have thematic cohesion. So you can't just, I mean, I love Kramer, Wolfgang Kramer, and Michael Kiesling, but like the game Riverboat is a good example of where thematic cohesion just goes to die. Like you are just shipping. You're like, I'm going to ship these goods on a riverboat to take them down the Mississippi, which is completely not what anyone in America thinks of what riverboats are. Even though that technically is a thing that could have happened on a riverboat, most people did it as a leisure activity. So you would jump on, and the whole shipping the goods is technically a thing, but like no one would like romanticize that. And so you're doing this whole game, and it's so just, hey, guess what? It's on riverboats too. And come on, that's the thing. So I actually loved how fast and interesting that game was and the different phases. But what are we doing and why? I don't know. I still don't know. So I think games have evolved a little bit so that like, yes, you could have a very strong Azul style game where that's just cool mechanics, or you can have a thematically integrated, coherent game system that does artistic things while also being rich, complex, and you kind of have to do both at this point. And I think some German game designers are struggling with that concept. And hey, people still buy those games though. People still buy the complex mathematical process game that you do a lot of economic theory, but like it's starting to go like slowly on the downfall. And I can tell why, right?
I mean, I have a view that the theme is utterly inconsequential to games, and it's about great mechanics, but, that's for another day. So can you give us an overview of your game design process? How do you get from, having an idea in your head to a playable game that's on the table that people can enjoy?
Spreadsheets. I just use a lot of spreadsheets. The magic sauce is honestly like spreadsheets and being good about planning ahead at this point. I don't It's not really fair. Like if you're a new game designer, right? Like this is not the way to go about it, but as you like evolve, you should sort of I would think you'd want to evolve towards a more like efficient, crafty way of handling it, right? So that you're not just going into literally everything always blind. So when I see someone go like, I'm gonna want to make this game. I played a game at Unpub just I was talking about called Scivias, which was like about the legacy of Hildegard, and it's the first. She's the first recorded. She recorded her music, and she's the first one that did that, right? And so it's a game about making music and doing none things. And I think what's interesting about like attacking something like that, as opposed to attacking like a King of Tokyo or something like where you're just monsters fighting things, is that you just and I've lost the point of everything, but like you just you have to attack those differently, but you're gonna have the same check boxes right down the row, right? So when I start, I always go like, what are the things I really want to hit with this game? And if I'm kind of veering off and not doing something, like if I'm like, oh, I'm now making this game about Hildegard, but the focus of the game is about, I don't know, like traveling the continent and selling things. I'm making a different game. I should either make that game or stay in my lane, So I think the planning aspect is really important. And right at the beginning, just go like, these are the 2 or 3 things that I really want to do with this game. And then if you can, make a spreadsheet planning out all the cards, all the things that you expect to be in the game, whatever it is, right? Because even though you're going to change it, like you at least get a sense of the scope, how much it's going to be, what it's going to do. And if you're a new game designer, throw all that out of the window and just do whatever the heck, like whatever you're looking at on the table is good. Just do it. But once you're about 2 years in, start thinking about this as like I am making a card game that's going to have 10 expansions. How do I even start that, right? And that's kind of what I do. Like, and I've really liked getting a chance to do some of these more intellectual property style games because that has done that.
So you strike me as almost the archetype for the sort of indie designer, and I don't want to damn you with faint praise here, but you seem to work with companies and design games that have a sort of a very sort of unique and indie feel. I mean, to what degree does that mean that you have to get involved in processes that aren't simply game design? What input do you have into things like art design and graphic design and the development of games as opposed to simply the design?
It's like, it depends. as with everything in life, it depends. And it depends on generally the complexity. I think that's 100% the thing. If the game is more complex and you bring to the table something that is hard for people to parse quickly, then you have a lot more creative control. They can't, like, unless there are companies out there that are good at this. I'm pretty sure that like someone like a Spielworks or Furland, they would be good at parsing all of those different components and coming up with a game plan for the whole thing. But as you start getting into the weeds and you have to do hundreds of cards, check each individual line of like dialogue or flavor text. I mean, when you get to the point where you have a branching narrative that has 180,000 words, there is no way for someone producer-wise, editor-wise, anywhere to check all of that. So you really have to be self-governing in those situations. Outside of that, though, there are just card games that most people are going to submit for their first game, or a small like Euro game, that you'll basically just have no input at all.
Hmm.
You'll submit it and they'll go, hey, I love that you made this a game about a city, but now it's in outer space and it's a space station. It's a space station. Hope you like that. Yeah, so it really depends. It gets widely different, and I'm hoping with some games that are coming up for me that like I get to step back. I get to go, hey, go for it. You got this. I'm gonna go get these off my schedule and go do something else. Whatever you do, please just treat it nicely. Treat my baby nicely.
And so on that subject, you've had games like Spires and Xenon Profiteer and Viva Java that felt, that felt indie, but you broke through sort of last year into what I would say is kind of the mainstream of an indie hobby, right? And
well,
that was
all my indie cred. It's gone.
Right, exactly. With My Father's Work. I mean, what is the story of that game? Not just the idea and getting it designed, but then getting Renegade on board, and then what was the feeling where you nearly do $1 million on Kickstarter?
All right, so let's do the first one. So it's the story that's notorious is the fact that I sat down with Scott from Renegade and I basically just said, you don't want this game. Which I did. I was like, I'm like, I love that you're interested in this, but like, let me just set the stage. Like, I've got this app off to the side. It's going to be running like the story for this big, large game. It's got a lot of pieces. It's a Euro game. It's going to take like 2 or 3 hours just to play. Like, I know what you're looking. It's like what you've been traditionally doing is looking for like the smaller games that come in these boxes. And this is outside of that realm. I understand that it sounds cool, but like I don't want you to get the wrong impression. And he's like, okay, so now I want it. And that was really the starting of the conversation. And this one's weird because this was the first time where, well, maybe not the first time.
So can you give us before that? Can you give us an overview of what the game is for those who aren't
for
aware
people
of it?
Yeah. So My Father's Work is a epic three generation story of a mad scientist family. You play as mad scientists competing for points, but like basically just infamy, and whoever has the most infamy at the end wins. It is a love letter to Frankenstein and even young Frankenstein. I mean, it plays off of the trope of young Frankenstein in that each generation you die and the next of your kin comes back and that's you again, and you play through the next generation. And of course, like, the villagers are still there. The whole place is still there. They remember what happened. But they're kind of like, well, maybe this person will be good this time. And it kind of resets and, you keep going. But the cool thing about it is, unlike most Euro games at all, it has this cutoff point at the end of the generation. It's like, so any resources that you have, any like extra experiments and cards and stuff, they all just disappear. And the only thing you keep are things that are tied down. So things that you might have on display, or like things you've built up in your estate, journal notes that you've written in your journal. They get passed down to the next generation, and then they start. So there is this build up, but it's also this extreme like builds, restart, builds, restart, builds. But each time you're carrying over just a little bit more. I think that fits into the normal thing, but like the cool thing about it is that it is Gothic horror, and it is written with okay. So next part. So all of that happens, right? Game is a worker placement game. You gather resources, you take actions on your thing. Each the workers are different thematic people. Like, you have yourself, you have servants, you have your spouse, you have a caretaker. They all do different things based upon that. It's easy to pick out because it makes sense. It makes sense what they do. But then on top of that, there's the story element, and that is run by an app off to the side. And this app isn't just a flip through the pages, find the right passage and do stuff. This is an app that remembers choices that you have made collectively as a group, and then moves the story in a different direction. And that will include turning to new pages in the board. So the board is a book that you flip to new pages. And depending on what choices you make, you flip to different pages. Some of them are blatant, like, I killed the blacksmith, so the blacksmith's gone. okay, that space on the board doesn't exist anymore, right? So, the story will evolve over time, and depending on your choices, this is a branching storyline that never comes back. So you will never see something like this in a video game. It is just purely one leg that you
Mm.
play for that your game, and it feels like a full story. And if you play again, you'll get a different leg, which you play the whole way through and get a different story. And so that happens, but also, so you got the flipping board, you got all this stuff, and you played over 3 generations, and and it's all in one sitting. So once you're done, you pack it up, you can start again, you can play a different scenario. It comes with 3 different scenarios for the base game, and they're each like very, very replayable. So yeah,
And you,
big love.
and so you persuaded. Well, you tried to actively dispersuade, if that's a word, Renegade from signing
Why
it.
wouldn't I? It sounds, even if I give that description to someone, that just sounds unpublishable and like a disaster. Like, who would do that? Like, why would you want to do that?
I mean, so someone who'd been an indie designer, respected but not sort of, I would say sort of having a game that people could go, that's a TC Petty design,
Yeah.
to within the space of a Kickstarter campaign, having something that was, before the game is published, was already a success with the amount of backers that you had. I mean, how did that feel? Was it weird? And was that the first time that you were able to sort of say, here I am, professional game designer, able to live within this world without having to do anything else on the side?
Yeah, it was that exact feeling that a lot of writers have, like the both cathartic, like, look, I'm worthy, but also this isn't an overnight success, everybody. Like, I've been working on this for like 12 years. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I have like 6 games out already. Go play those. What are you talking about? But that's the thing. Like, that's why I always, like, people on Twitter, they're like, I'm working on my novel. I'm like, that's great. When's your 7th novel coming out? Because that's
Right.
when it's really going to hit. And this feels like that, right? It feels like this was really, okay. So I guess the next step is the feeling of like, it's really successful, like surprisingly successful. Because I was being realistic. I was like, this is a big game. It's made for Kickstarter. It's kind of got the minis. It's got the whole like ambitious attitude. So perfect to put on Kickstarter. But I'm thinking like, okay, if we get 100,000, I'm happy. This is great, cool. And we end up getting like 930,000, something like that. And that's with just initial pledges, and then just everybody was on the pledge manager, so easily went over 1 million by the end, right? Like, but and then on top of that, like, people are just pre-ordering it now, and I only got the numbers from like before it actually pseudo, like, people got it in their hands, and like it quickly is. There's all kinds of weird considerations behind the scenes that happens whenever something is also, now it's like, oh, remember that thing that was actually like really successful? Guess what? Success continues sometimes. And like, now we've got to think about like, what do we do for more copies? Like, when are these going to run out? So that's really cool to be in that position. And for me, I was both extremely happy and devastated at the time.
Explain the devastation, because the happiness is clear, but why devastated?
Because I had been, it's like, I had been working on this for so long, and it took so many playtests to get where it was. And we're talking, I was going back and trying to figure out how many hours, approximately, I spent on the game in its entirety. And I was like calculating it, and I'm like, it's over 3,000. And I'm like, that is, and I calculated on days, and I was like, oh, that's over 167 days of working on this game, just full 24 hours. And I'm like, like I'm looking at so I was looking at the end result and going, this is amazing, but like, it still doesn't even pay the bills. Like, I'm averaging $3 an hour or something like that. I don't even know what it is. And I'm like, oh boy. So like, I was both super, like, just from a number standpoint, because I think those soothe me a little bit to like write down the number, figure out, okay, what was the hours? What was this? As you're being overwhelmed. And so I was super happy that it worked out. That no matter what, at this point, even if the game would come out and people were like, I'm totally disappointed and I hate this thing, at least I had the 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 catharsis of a day that like it came to fruition, which not everyone gets, and that's I feel super lucky for that. But on the other side, I was so burnout. I was so sick of talking. I was so not talking about the game, but like I was so sick of writing this thing. You know, it's like when I say it's like what the number is, you know, 100 whatever thousand words, right? That's a lot. It's like 2 novels about for most people, maybe even 3. But the amount of what didn't get in there, this has been rewritten twice. So it's
Right.
like there is so much more that went into this, and on top of like, you know, just I don't know. But I just look at it as like this was just such a overwhelming moment that it kind of just put me in a position where I was non-functional for a while, just couldn't get work done. I didn't realize it was going to hit me that hard, and I realized last year that aside from just being burnout, like I was human. Like there's emotions inside me. There are things that come out, and so you know, dealing with crying every day when something is really good is so rough and so just not what you're expecting. And
I mean, is there this sense that you don't deserve it? It seems to me that you're someone for whom the righteous frustration of being the undiscovered genius is somehow a reward in itself, and when you do get successful, it's that kind of drive has disappeared. Am I talking rot, or is there something
talking
in
wrong,
there?
which is weird, right? Okay, so that is the thing that maybe we differ a little on, just personality wise. For me, I was like, there is a bit of this mad scientist in me. I'm like, finally they understand me, like this is my life's work. Look, they know, the people, they know, but they don't really understand. Yeah, so that's the thing. So even though my brain works a little bit differently in that sense, I know that the normal thing would be to be like, I've got this feeling of like, what's the word for it? Whenever you don't feel a part of, you don't, when you don't feel like you deserve something, and you feel like an
Imposter
outsider.
syndrome.
Imposter syndrome. There we go. That's what I was looking for. So I don't have that. Like very rarely do I do. I do it when I like social anxiety I have.
Right.
But imposter syndrome, I usually generally go like, okay, once people see what I have to offer, if I give them a quality thing and I know it's quality, I trust myself to be like, you're going to recognize this as quality as well. And so that's always been my mantra for doing games, and that's why it is really tough for me to step into a zone where I am not indie. So if that kind of makes sense, like the indie part is great because I have creative control and I can guarantee, hey, there is something special here and this is good. But once I lose that control, if I'm working on an intellectual property, if I'm working on this, there are just pieces of that aren't under my control, and I can't be like, this is really good all the way through. So that's where this whole thing has, even though it overwhelmed me, my hope is that because of this, people go, oh, okay, I'm going to trust your opinion on this next thing, because even if you're going to make, like, the problem I've had, right, is like, I'll be like, oh, here's a game about relaxing at a resort. It's a complex medium weight Euro game. And some people are like, I'm digging that. Other people are like, this is unpublishable. And I think now people might be like, oh, okay, cool, I'll try that. And then all of a sudden it sells really well. And you're like, why aren't people making games about like these other cool themes? You know, it's like the Elizabeth Hargrave thing. She puts out a game about birds and bird watching, right? And it's good. And people are like, wait, but games have always been like this. Why don't we have more bird games? Let's do science games. And it's just like, where were these people before? Like, they're all telling you like this can't be done, and it's like, no. Once it's done and it's done well, everybody goes, oh, that's done well. I think quality really, really stands out.
So this game, the reason I said at the beginning of the show that you have incredible taste in hiring voice talent is that you asked me to do the voices for the app in this game, and I was struck by, you know, when I was recording the bits, that it's literature, it's gothic literature. There's a lot of sort of there's a lot of that sort of garment tearing gothic sort of feel to the prose. Is this game somehow, is My Father's Work somehow the synthesis between your former life and your current life?
It's more of a game design thesis, I guess, right? So what does that mean? Is that like a cutoff point, right? Is that like the turning point for other things? I don't know.
I mean, do you feel like all of those hours? You talk about all of those hours going into design. You're earning $3 an hour or whatever. Yeah. Do you feel like all of those hours you put into creative writing have now somehow been vindicated?
Oh yeah. I mean, and it's not fair, like, to be like that. I think that's a little bit pretentious to be like, yeah, I'm vindicated, but that's where my brain goes. I go like, okay, so honestly, I go, yes, people recognize that even though this is not exactly what everybody wants for their Frankenstein game, some people vehemently are like, I only want to read one sentence, but hey, it's not like we made a campaign where we were like, everything will be one sentence long.
Right.
Get ready for a story that is 1 page long, and we'll rock your socks off. We just said this is an expansive big game, and I think even during that time, just saying to people that it's a 3-hour game is like weird to do. And I'm really happy that Renegade sort of saw that and listened to that feedback from people who played it. That's like, this is a game that's longer but worth it. Because misrepresenting that to people and then having them get it and it'd be like, I thought this was going to be 45 minutes. But no, the vindication is there because I could have gone in the direction of being very quick. And I decided to just let it be a love letter to that Victorian style writing. And whether it works 100% of the time, I don't know. I just tried to put my best foot forward. I'm not a published author, but I don't use that. I don't let that stand. I don't let anybody's experience stand against them. I would prefer to work with someone who has no experience or very little experience, but really is energetic about the thing, because they'll be open to feedback. They'll be listening to what you have to say. It's when you get complacent and you become that person that just does the same thing over and over and over again, and you don't even hear when other people are talking. That's when your stuff starts to suffer. You're not as good as what you were before. I listen to people all the time. I really appreciate feedback, and it's like I crave it. If somebody doesn't say something's wrong, I'm like, what is wrong? Like, why are you being nice to me? So a lot of times, especially when I'm playtesting now, I have to be like, I was really like, when you guys were doing this thing, I was really like, you just were really zoning out during that one moment. It's like, why was that wrong? Like, there was something like going on, and and that just gives people the opening to like give me good feedback and everything. But yeah, I've sort of gotten myself into a long-winded thing that doesn't really hit the point that we were at, but like, yeah, it's just like this. Why? I don't know. There's so much to all of this.
So you've spoken about having stuff in the pipeline, and what do you have coming out in the future that we can enjoy?
Oh man, I don't see, but that's the thing. I don't know. I'm like, so maybe it is like that turning point where there's a line, and there could be things coming out. I don't know. I have a trilogy of European city games that is just waiting for someone to be enthusiastic about putting them out, and that's like one game after the next. It's like I have Club Zen, which is I'm hoping that is a done thing, and that we'll see something like that coming out in the future. It may change a little bit, but like, and then just I don't know. This right now, I'm super happy to just be like, this is good. This is good for now. And I think the next step for me is just figuring out, now that I've gotten over the burnout, gotten over the being overwhelmed, what do I do next? What do I push forward to? And I'm still, I think, 2 months out from just feeling that out. But that's okay. I have games, and I have more games in the works, and I have more games in the back burner, and I'm hoping that, like, I don't know, publishers want to do these now. So reach out to me, publishers.
So I've got 2 more questions then. So you're at a convention, and you go out to a bar in the evening, and you're walking back from the loo, and there's a table of gamers, and they're sat around, and you hear your name mentioned. So you sidle into a corner, and you eavesdrop on what they're saying. What do you hope they're saying about you?
I think I'm hoping that they are talking about the game that's in front of them. I think I'm hoping that they're saying, "Oh, this is by T.C. Petty the Third," and nothing else. That they're just enjoying the game that they're playing, and I heard my name because they now have a designer on their list that like made this game. But for me, it's like the game is more important than my name. The name is only important if someone is someone with money, with decisions that can give me creative freedom to make a cool game. So that's my opinion. I mean, and so like, even though it's a business decision, I also look at it as like, no, I want you to play the game. I want you to like the game. I don't care if it's me. It's like, I don't like if Uwe Rosenberg makes a stinker. He made a stinker. It's like, he shouldn't have. So like, I want you to like the game for what it is.
So, final question then. Why is gaming good?
Why is gaming good? So I have, oh God, deep question. So I have played video games for most of my life. I've been around gaming. I started playing card games or board games with like Magic the Gathering, and just kind of stuck around in that nerdy space for the longest time. But I've never really considered myself to be a gamer or defined my personality that way. But I do it all the time. So I feel like play and being in gaming is just like a natural impulse for people. Like, even if people say that I don't play any games, you just go, wait, what did you play? This one, remember that party that you were at last week? Remember that game that you played? It's like, remember that, what was that game that you played? Oh, it was Werewolf? Yeah. Oh, yeah. You played Werewolf at a party one time? Okay, cool. And then that last party, you went to a bridal shower or something, and you all just like did this other thing. It's like, everybody just is around games as much as adults want to. I don't know. Luckily that's starting to go away. Like, I think that barrier to entry for adults playing games has started to be like, we've all grown up with games now. Video games are just so intrinsic in like culture that like it is very difficult to get away from that. But yeah, I think gaming is fun because it is what allows me to let my brain do what it was designed to do, and that is explore a space within limitations. And so I love creating, but when I'm not creating, I generally don't read books. I generally don't watch movies. I do those things, but I will sit down and I'll play a video game, or I'll play a board game with people, because that's my zone. That's my vegetative state. That is my natural state of being. So I want to have fun, and games are fun because, I don't know, they're just intrinsically the fun thing that my brain turns to. I don't know if there's a better answer than that, but yeah, it's intrinsic. It is part of me.
Excellent. Well, on that very profound statement, I'd like to say, TC, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Yeah, no problem. I had a great time.